Have you been having trouble convincing people that $1,000 a month for everyone is, one, reasonable, and two, it's not going to ruin the economy? It seems to me like anytime I try to talk to someone about the Freedom Dividend, they always push back and they always give these generalized arguments about how it's going to increase inflation, about how housing is going to just go up and skyrocket and cancel out the differences, and all these arguments against it. If you've been coming across these types of people on the internet and you've been trying to figure out how to convert them into yin yang and you've been failing over and over again, this is my opinion as to why that's happening. And this is something that we cannot unfortunately change, but Andrew Yang can. So let me talk about this today. When you talk about $1,000 a month to most people, this sounds like a pipe dream. It sounds like a reality that doesn't make sense. It sounds like if you think about someone else getting the money, you're like,
that person would spend it like crap. They would just waste it every single month.
And ultimately, this just goes down a rabbit hole and it just keeps going and going and going. And when you tell people, oh, it's going to be implemented through a value-added tax, usually the response, if someone is against it, is that,
oh, it's going to increase the cost of everything. So I don't want to pay more for things. That's just going to ruin it.
And you could even go into deeper arguments like, oh, look, unless you paid $10,000, you'll be still netting a positive out of it in a month. And of course, even when you go down this rabbit hole, it just doesn't click. And there's always been something that I felt like is missing. And I've thought a lot about this, and I believe I've realized what it is. When you talk to a Bernie Sanders supporter and you try to argue that Yang's plan is better, for example, than Bernie's plan, what do they usually do? Come on, if you ever try to convince a Bernie supporter to transfer over to Yang, and you're talking about the healthcare plan, which is Bernie's biggest idea, I mean, the federal jobs guarantee is kind of a no-brainer. I think even the Bernie supporters don't really like the federal jobs guarantee that much, honestly, but they support him because of other reasons. So what happens whenever you try to compare Yang's plan to Bernie's plan? The Bernie supporters go and point at his healthcare bill, and they look, he actually has a bill written for it, and he's actually has something on paper that people can digest and look at and point to whenever they start questioning his healthcare plan. It's like, oh, at least he has his bill written out. Of course, the bill doesn't make any sense. Of course, it doesn't explain how he's going to pay for it. It doesn't explain the immense amount of damage it's going to do along the way, but he still has it. Right now, all these arguments against the universal basic income, in my opinion, are people projecting the idea that it's just not feasible and that there's nothing to actually solidly back it up that they can point to. In my opinion, the next step that needs to be taken is to put the universal basic income into an actual bill that can be looked at and possibly potentially passed by the House and Senate. Without this staple, people are going to look at Andrew Yang's plan as just nothing more than talk and nothing more than just, oh, you just want to give people money and that's how you're going to win the presidency. And in my opinion, the longer that he spends not having a bill to point to and how he's going to implement a universal basic income, the longer this gives people a chance to realize that, what if he doesn't have a good plan for universal basic income? What if all the ways that he says are going to pay for it are actually not going to work? He needs a legit plan to back him up. And of course, he's not a politician, so I wouldn't expect him to come out and just write a perfectly written plan. But maybe he needs to recruit someone that is a politician to help him draft a universal basic income plan that can be pushed through the House and the Senate. If he does this, I think this will increase his viability in so many people, and he will actually all of a sudden become a top-tier candidate just because he has a plan to implement a universal basic income. Anyone can grab it and look at it and read it and skim through it and go over the details, the nitty-gritty things that they need to go over in order to solidify the idea in their minds. This is just something that I wanted to bring up. I think this is a legit concern that a lot of people have, is that a universal basic income sounds good. Adding the value-added tax, explaining how he's going to gain a portion of it back from the welfare recipients, how he's going to boost the economy with the extra money in people's hands. All of this sounds very nice. But again, we just need it on paper. We need it as a form of a bill that can actually be passed with the systems that we have in place. That's real. In my opinion, that's the next step. Do you guys agree with this? I actually really think this is the problem that we're facing right now, is that we don't have anywhere legit except these charts that are made up by other people about the universal basic income, which basically are charts that just go over Andrew Yang's talking points. But again, I just think back when I've had so many conversations with different people and I'm trying to convince them of all these different benefits of the universal basic income. Oftentimes I can even get them to agree with me. Continuously, all these arguments you can use are great. All of them will help sway certain people. But at the end of the day, people are looking at this and saying, okay, he has good ideas. He's a really smart guy, but is he viable in the current economic system and the current political system that we have and the way things are implemented in the House and the Senate and all these different branches? Does he really think he can get stuff done? Is he more than just all talk? Of course, we all know he likes to say that he would be the most unifying leader out of all of the other choices. And I agree with this. Again, this is something that I think is silly, but it needs to be done. If he doesn't do this, a lot of people are going to keep brushing him off as someone not serious. But imagine this. Andrew Yang has drafted a bill explaining how he's going to pay for universal basic income, explaining how it's going to be implemented. So we can all look at it, and the first thing we might realize, oh, it's not going to be all implemented right away. It's not going to be all thrown in right away. He might part of the stipulations of the bill might be that certain states are going to get it first and a certain priority level, or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that people can get their hands on it, an actual bill that he's going to present to these other branches of the government. Anyway, if you guys like this idea, share it around. Let other people know that maybe Andrew Yang needs to go this direction and this route and get the universal basic income into people's minds in a more solidified way. Thank you guys for listening. If you guys enjoyed this content, please like it and don't forget to subscribe. My current upload schedule is a little bit inconsistent right now, so I apologize for that. Like, to be honest, this whole week with the voting kind of threw me off, and it's just there's so much going on, and there's so many other people reporting on this and that, and they're just talking about how corrupt everything is. I don't want to just come out and just say what they're all saying. It's like, we already know. We really need to think about how to get Andrew Yang's voice louder. My opinion, this is the best way. Thank you guys for listening. And like always, don't forget, humanity comes first, always. Humanity first.